to talk about, the world burning and like some of the terrifying things in our world. If a child can't do anything about it, it's terrifying. But when we remind children that you can smile, you can leave a space for someone beside you for lunch, like those little things that you do, they can make a difference.
I strongly believe we've got to leave kids with a sense of hope in our stories. We need them to see the future. We need them to believe that things can get better. And it allows them to make things get better because they believe that.
Welcome to Journey of the Art, where we discuss the artist, unravel the art, and explore the road between. Hi, and welcome to Journey of the Art. Today, I'm joined by two guests to discuss their collaboration, One Can. Illustrated by Isabelle Malenfant, One Can is the story of a young boy's generosity and the importance of community in tackling food insecurity. One Can is a Lone Star top pick, most anticipated book ordered by libraries, a CBC Books Top 30 Canadian Books for Younger Kids, and it has received a starred review from Kirkus Reviews. One Can is available for purchase from Groundwood Books. My guests and authors of One Can are Lana Button and Eric Walters. Lana Button is the award-winning author of more than a dozen books for children, which have been translated into several languages. Her books are often used in classrooms to enhance social-emotional learning. Eric Walters has authored over 140 books, which have been translated into 16 languages and have won over 100 awards. It all started when he wrote his first book for grade 5 students to help them become more interested in reading and writing. Welcome to the show, Lana
Good to be here.
and Eric.
For having us.
Well, before we begin the conversation, if you don't know, you can find Journey of the Art wherever you get your podcasts. So check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other platforms to listen on the go, follow the show, and leave a comment. This really helps to boost our visibility so more folks like you can discover and join the community. And as always, I'd love to connect with you on Instagram, so please follow the show at Journey of the Art Pod. Okay, now we can start. And I really want to start by thanking you both for writing this book. I think it's so necessary to portray fictional characters who model empathy for young readers. And I appreciate the fact that the book tackles the issue of food insecurity. And Lana, I'm going to start with you here. What started this collaboration and what made you decide to develop this project?
I was very lucky to be involved in a conversation with Eric about a story idea that he had about a child who donates his favorite can of food, and that can comes back to him. So Eric told me about this story he was thinking about, and I really resonated with it. With my background as an early childhood educator in schools where there is food insecurity, my own personal experience, I grew up in a low socioeconomic spot in southern New Brunswick. So I had various experiences with seeing friends who had a lot of food insecurity. And I think the key was Eric and I were excited to tell this story to young children in a way that would be inspiring. It would create inspiration and empathy without causing children to feel unsafe in their world.
Love that. Eric, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, Lana talked about this as a very personal book for both of us. My background is I'm from a single parent family, utter poverty, and food insecurity was a great deal of me growing up. This is personal for us. And so we want to express it in a way that would be empathetic, to allow children to understand, but to not make people feel in any sense sense of shame or sense of the story being preachy to them. This is just we want it to come across as genuine and caring and responsive to the situation.
Right. And I love the fact that you said that you wanted to do this without causing shame, because one of
Mhm.
the things that I also observed in this book is this beautiful collaboration between the children where they're working together to alleviate the effects of food insecurity. And they do that by each donating a can of food.
Mhm.
And one of the key components of your work, Lana, is social emotional literacy, just like you just talked about. Can you talk about how you were able to tap into this aspect of your work to write the book?
As Eric said, we were really hoping to tap into the story without creating any shame and developing empathy and resilience so that
Mm,
the child that is hearing the story, who might be experiencing some of these things, feels seen and feels respected. And for the child who's just coming to terms with the fact that there is food insecurity in the world. I think we
mm,
always have to remember with the picture book that this might be the first experience a child has with hardship, with
mm,
loss, and a child will gain empathy if they feel hope and they see a resolution. But a child that is left feeling scared about the world that they live in, then they're just gonna they're gonna it's gonna create fear, and they're gonna pull into themselves as opposed to coming out and feeling empathy. So it's there's always I always I always put hope and resilience in the stories that I write, because when children see that, they've experienced it, and it can help them when they're in that type of situation.
right,
Mhm.
right. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And I want to pull on that thread just a little bit, because
Mhm.
you just talked about the importance of um, including hope and resilience in your children's books. Is there a reason why hope is so important? I'm wondering if there are any studies or research that you can tap into to help us understand why this is so crucial. And I ask this for anyone who is a writer who is listening to this, and I guess perhaps wondering how they can write about social issues and give children some hope. Yeah.
Hope is so central. My background is, aside from being a teacher, I have a master's in social work. I'm a family therapist. And what they found is people's ability to be resilient, to continue on, is significantly magnified when they have hope that they will have a successful outcome. People can go further when they believe that something good is going to happen at the end. Um, I strongly believe we've got to leave kids with a sense of hope in our stories. I've just rewritten Romeo and Juliet for young adult stories. And in the end, Romeo and Juliet, in this case it's Julia and Cody, resolve the situation to help their families come together.
Mm,
There's enough that's going wrong in the world without us making it a major selling point within stories. We need kids to see hope. We need them to see the future. We need them to believe that things can get better. And it
mm,
allows them to make things get better because they believe that. They can
right,
hang in there longer. They can fight through the adversity and then come out the other side if they see characters coming out the other side.
right. And just following up on that, there's what I find to be an interesting symbol in the book, and it is the shape of the can. And as I read the book, I realized that the overarching message of this story is the importance of paying it forward. And so the can of food is a circle that each child donates, is a circle of generosity that keeps the community going. And so there's a message in the book that says that when we're in need, we receive from others. And when we have more than enough, we give to those in need, we take care of those in need. Um, I believe that this was an intentional strategy, but Eric, I'll give you an opportunity to speak a bit more about that. And then maybe, Lana, you can add to it as well.
Well, this story was inspired by the school we did the launch last week. Um, Fairly socioeconomically challenged school, which had a food drive, and it was amazing the amount of food that they gave. Amazing. This also fits with the literature. When children feel hunger on a personal level, not just in their head but in their stomach, they're more likely to be generous.
Mm.
The poor schools, the challenge schools, are the ones that give amazing amounts during food drive. And this school had its challenges, but what they had is incredibly generous students. I think when you receive, you also learn to give. And when you give, you should be able to receive. Both are hard sometimes. It's hard for some people to receive. It's hard for some people to give.
Lana, do you want to add to that?
Yeah. And what I hope in a conversation with children that other children might pick up on is that in one class, they received 100 cans. So this guy donated one. So
Mm.
that means that in this class, there were other kids who donated a lot more to get to that 100 can. But what he gave was what he had. So it was a lot. It was everything that he had. And so
Yeah.
I hope that children will notice that. And and again with the mittens, we see that he loved those mittens. And and um it was a lot for him. I think that it was more special for him to give this thinking, you know what, some kid is really going to appreciate that. And
Yeah.
when children understand what we're doing, wow, this is really going to help someone. That's where we really build in the empathy of, I'm not just doing this because I'm trying to, get to a certain number. I'm doing this because I can really help someone. So I
Yeah.
just love it's more for me about the word can, what we can do. So I loved that, when we talked about it, it wasn't just, boxes and bags and whatever. It was can, so that we can lean into that word can.
Yeah.
When I signed this book, I always put one can change the world. And that's the idea of one person, one gesture, one action. And I know we've seen that as educators, where something that we didn't think was overly significant becomes a significant memory for a child that changes.
Yeah.
And that's what we also have to remember: those small gestures. You're not capable of changing everything, but you're capable of changing some things.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that we give children attainable goals. To talk about, the world burning and like some of the terrifying things in our world. If a child can't do anything about it, it's terrifying. But
Yeah.
when we remind children that you can smile, you can leave a space for someone beside you for lunch, like those little things that you do, they can make a difference. So I think
Mm.
that that's what gives children hope. Give them something that's in their world that's attainable.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
talk about theory behind things, and this works in very nicely with matter theory. People feel that they matter when they feel that they can impact on the world. When a child can see that they can change something for somebody, they feel that they're more important, that they matter more. This young man matters more because he's able to help others.
Yeah. I love everything that you've said so far. And uh, there's, I think, the most touching thing for me in this book is the sense of purpose that you are both talking about, that this child has, and I guess even the other children in the book that they have. And I wonder if this purpose that they have stems also from a sense of innocence that children have, because there's a moving point in the book where the boy realizes that he's a recipient of the community's generosity. And there's such a beautiful response that the mother gives. There's such tact and wisdom with which she responds to her son's realization. And I thought about all the ways that the conversation could have gone. The boy could have dissolved into tears, or the mother could have changed the subject. In fact, um, and I really wanted to ask you both about that. Can you talk to me about the process of writing this specific part of the book? I don't know who wants to take that one.
I think the wording of that spread was what we worked the most on.
Mm.
We really wanted to get that just right. And the mom's response, which really, as a mom, you or a dad, you know how heartbreaking that would be. when you're the one, when you have to, this is the moment that we're going to explain that, yes, we are getting help right now.
Yeah.
And it was so crucial that we weren't pitying anyone, and we weren't putting anyone down. We weren't judging. We were saying, we're looking right into the kitchen and saying, this is where we are right now. And
Yeah.
that's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay, because everyone in their life at some point will need help. And aren't we so lucky to live in a place where people will help us, and then we will be able to help them? Like, so, but to say it to a child so that it's not overwhelming and they can understand it, like, we examined every word, and we went over it many times to get that just right.
But forget every word. I mean every syllable. Things are broken down in the timing and the rhythm of this. I've collaborated on books before, and this reached the stage where I love a collaboration to be, where we'll look at a line and think, "Oh, I really like that line," and then we'll say, "Who wrote that line? Where did that line come from?" And when your abilities merge into writing the story, that's where it becomes powerful.
Hmm.
Yeah, we got on Zoom and we went back and we read that over and over and changed one word and changed it back and changed one word and changed it back. And so we were working together at putting that, all those tiny little pieces together. So it was very cool.
Which is also part of the advice for people writing stories. Read your stuff out loud. Whether it's a picture book or 100,000 page manuscript, read it out loud. How things look through your eyes and how they sound through your ears are so different.
Right. Right.
And when you're very brave, get somebody else to read it to you, because then you really get to hear how it's going to sound when somebody else reads it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, um, similar to this question about the empathy, the wisdom with which the mother responds to her son's realization, is the part where the boy and his friend are having lunch. And one kid brings his lunch from home, and the other has food given to him by the teacher, clearly from a lunch program for kids whose parents can afford lunch. But the boys don't talk about the source of their lunch. Instead, they uh, appreciate what the other person has. And I think this was such a spectacular way of showing, and not even telling kids, but really showing kids how to handle difference. Um, Eric, do you want to talk about the process of writing this part of the book as well?
Well, this whole book was such a collaboration. And again, I try and figure out where different parts of it come from. And quite frankly, I can't tell you what in those lines came from Lana and which came from me. It's sort of like this story is being told by this young man through his eyes. And our job was both of us to climb out of who we are and into him to allow the story to be told, for it to be genuine. Often, a good story feels like it's actually happening in front of your eyes. And so we're just a witness to what's going on. And there were times I think this young man said things I was thinking, oh my God, that's right. But why did he say that? That was perfect.
So it seems to me that there's something about getting into the psychology of a child to be able to write effectively for them. Would that be correct?
There are times that I really feel that people are writing children's books to impress other adults. They're using an adult voice and an adult frame of reference. And I hear that in stories and think, that's not a children's book anymore. This is a story told through the eyes, through the feelings, through the emotions, through the life of this young boy. And if we've done it right, you don't hear Lana's voice, you don't hear my voice, you hear his voice.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and in discussing when a child is in a classroom and somebody is getting more help, like, again, I like, my heart would go out to a child who has that realization of, oh, wait a minute, where am I getting this? So I want them, and we wanted them to feel respected and supported, and zero shame. So I think that we can talk about just about anything in a picture book, but we always have to be aware of developmentally what that young audience can handle.
Right.
And so, what you're talking about in an elementary school, for example, what you're talking about in kindergarten and what you're talking about in grade 8, it might be the same topic, but you better be telling it in a different way, because developmentally, a young child, that's who we're speaking to with a picture book. And if you do it really well, everyone is going to enjoy it. And when you're talking about those serious topics, we're going to read the whole story in 5 minutes, and then we're going to talk about it. There's lots of bandwidth, attention wise, to carry on the conversation.
Right.
Do you know a good Disney movie is written on two levels? One's the adult and one for the kids. And we think that this is going to be a story that's accessible for younger kids who are going to get meaning from it. They're going to enjoy it one way. It's going to hit differently for 10-year-olds, and it's going to hit differently for adults. We've had a number of adults whose responses in reading it, my favorite is people saying, I'm not crying, you're crying. This has an emotional impact on adults. It has a different emotional impact on young children. It will have a different impact for 15-year-olds.
And it's also a reread.
Right.
It's a story that we want to read more than once, because like children will pick up on different things the fourth time they hear it, the fifth time they hear it. So, they might not even pick up on that lunch thing until they've really had some time to think about it. So,
Right.
I think that this book has a lot of shelf life.
I think so too.
Thank you.
I think so too. Even as an adult, every time I read it, I've seen something that I didn't see before. Have you had an opportunity to read this book to young readers, and what has the reception been like so far? I'm gonna let you take this on, Lana.
There's so many wonderful parts of this journey when you write a picture book story. This has been especially amazing for me because I started it with Eric. And when you get to see the art for the first time, it's really amazing. But when you are in front of your audience
Hmm.
and reading that book, it's kind of like opening night in a theater, because you're like, how is this going to land? Your audience is right in front of you. So, and there is no more honest audience than an audience of children. If you
Yes.
are not entertaining them, or you haven't grasped them, you haven't grabbed their attention, then you're going to know right away. So to see that response when you get to that page where he says, with a sticker on it, like, it's like boom, like you can feel it, and then right? But also, it's okay, like it's not unsafe. It's not unsafe. So I've been so happy with how, in reading the story out loud, how the audience has responded.
Mm-hmm. All through the production of this story, I was reading it to my grandchildren because they're basically the test market. When I first started writing my first 20 novels, I wrote for my class while I was teaching. And you'd read a section that you thought was hilarious and they didn't think was funny. Or you have a line that they just didn't understand. And that allows you to reshape continually. And so this was reshaped through the reading process of us reading it to each other, reading to children. And last Tuesday, Lana was the one who actually read it. We were part of the presentation. She did the actual reading. It was in front of 250 kids from kindergarten to grade 4, and then a bunch of 7s and 8s in the background. And you'd see their response. You could see it in their eyes, their expressions. And when the snowflake, that line with the snowflake, there were kids that went. You could see them visibly respond to it, the gasp. And some was very empathetic and like, oh my God, that poor child. And some was, that's me.
Mm.
I know what that's like.
Yeah, this book is it's an emotional book on several levels, and like you rightly said, it's a book that you'll come to over and over again because there's several layers of meaning, and I think it's as a result of this collaboration between the two of you where you poured over every single word, every idea, every syllable, and I think what you finally came out with is this spectacular book that we'll continue to go back to from time to time. But Eric, I have to ask you, you've written over 140 books. What makes this one special?
Well, it's like all of your children are special, right?
Yeah.
But I enjoy the collaborative process. This book is moving. This book goes back to my roots. This is Lana's roots. As I said, schools that are socioeconomically challenged are the ones that give the most in food drives. They
Right.
feel it. We feel this book in our stomachs. We can remember times when food wasn't necessarily there for us. And even if it was there, you're worried about it. And even when kids have food, they shouldn't be worrying about food when they're 7 or 8. It should just be a given.
Yeah.
When that little boy gasps, that's us as well. We're not just telling a story emotionally, we're telling a story, not just intellectually, but emotionally. It resonates with us.
Yeah. So I want to take us just a little bit back to what you talked about earlier, and I'm still speaking to you, Eric. You talked about getting into, we talked about getting into the psychology of a child. And you talked about observing that some books are speaking in the language of an adult. Now, the ironic part of the whole thing is that adults are the one writing for children.
Yeah.
And so I guess the question is then, how do you get into the psychology of a child to be able to effectively write for that child?
Certainly not being aware of your audience, being a teacher, having children helps. Doing your test runs with children and appreciating that, knowing the psychology of the people you're writing for, the emotional development, the intellectual development. I've said this to teachers. I always say, please don't take it personally. I don't write for you. I write for your students. We're trying to connect on a level, on the level that a child can accept the story and understand the story. Our backgrounds, educationally, as well as our ongoing life circumstances, means that we are attuned to what children, those levels of children.
Right.
Some people think they're trying to impress other adults. Quite frankly, I just don't care that much about other adults liking or not liking my stories. I want it to resonate with the children.
Mm. Lena, do you want to add anything to that, especially as with your experience?
But our audience doesn't have a job, so we really want the adult to help us out a little bit. And you know what? I find that a read aloud too is an experience. Right? I want, like you were saying when you were sharing this story with your daughter, I want that experience, that 5 minutes you have, to be amazing for both of you. And so if we write this story well enough, it's going to roll off their tongue. They're going to be so successful as a storyteller, and they're going to have a great reading experience as well.
Right.
I was an actor, so, and the thing that I loved about being an actor was my character, creating character. So I love to get into the character of a young child, and working with children for years. You know, if I was in a room full of people, I'd feel way more comfortable just being over with the kindergartners. That's always been my comfort. I feel like I can connect with them, and so that's who I write for typically.
Okay.
I've won a whole lot of Children's Choice Awards across the country. And I've also lost more Children's Choice than anybody else as well. So I have both distinctions. But I always say to kids, the reason I win these awards is I have a superpower. I'm a teacher. I have been in the class enough. I've been around kids enough, coaching my own kids, to know the language, the developmental level. There's no point in giving them a meal they can't consume. You've got to be able to put it at a level they can handle. And that's the important thing, putting it at a level they can handle. And this story obviously appeals to adults. The reviews have been spectacular, including one accolade we can't even tell you about yet because it doesn't announce for another week, but it's pretty spectacular. So it has appealed to adults, but it's the kid hearing the story who gasps when the snowflake is revealed. That's what does it for me. That's where, if no adult awards came or starred or anything, but that happened, that's what counts for me.
Right. Okay. So, Lana, you talked about being an actor before,
Hmm.
and recently you shared that you are your day job is now full time writing of children's books.
Yes.
How's that going so far?
It's amazing. It's amazing when you get to do what you love full time. It's challenging. It's terrifying sometimes, but I love it. I love being involved in writing. Some days I'm involved in writing. Some days I'm involved in traveling to schools and presenting, which is I love that equally. I get to perform my stories and I get to connect with kids. The admin part, not so much. Totally wrecked my back because I am also my own roadie. But no, it's a fantastic job. I'm very fortunate and excited that I'm able to do this now.
It is
Yeah.
exciting. I've done 12,000 presentations in schools,
Well,
and that actually boggles my mind. And when we go in, our job is to not just sit there and read a book, but to get them into the spirit of it, to engage them. It's a combination performance, reading, presentation experience. And if it's done right, you inspire writing, you inspire reading. Uh, it's a wondrous process.
Okay, so Eric, when you started writing decades ago, you started this to get children interested in writing and reading. But
Yeah,
we now live in a time where screens and devices are contending for children's attention much more than ever before, or more than anything has ever done. Has this changed your approach to writing or had any impact on your writing?
my writing has always been very visual. Um, the written word is still powerful. Somebody sitting with a book is an amazing thing, and it gets their imagery working and their intelligence working and their emotional intelligence. When I started, I used to get classes where it'd be like 24 of the 28 kids were boys, and they were good at three things: lunch, recess, and gym. And I started writing for these boys, my entire class, and it was like I put the story in my class, and they became characters in the story, and was set in the community, and was curriculum based on what we were studying. And I'd read my book to them chapter by chapter as I was writing it, and it was just this amazing process of getting them into the writing process, getting them into the reading process. Uh, I love when recess happens and you're reading a story to kids, and they say, "No, no, we're not going out to recess. You have to keep reading. Please, no, don't stop now." But you stop at the end of a chapter and say, "Okay, now we'll go to math." No, no, please, you have to go on. Those are wonderful things.
Yeah. Okay. That's very useful for me. I
mhm.
have to say. I'm learning so much from the both of you, much more than you can realize. Um, and Lana, what would you say has been the secret to staying on the journey of your art?
I think you have to lean into why you do it on the hard days and
Mm,
enjoy the process. Enjoy, even if it's for yourself, as who is reading what you're writing. If you can make yourself feel something, then you know what, just lean into that accomplishment. And um so I sometimes I have to pull myself back if I'm getting overwhelmed with all the other things and just say, I'm going to enjoy doing this. I'm going to enjoy creating something. Much like somebody might like cross stitching or like karaoke. This is my
mm,
art. This is what fulfills me. So I spend time with that. I also have little notes around my desk that children have sent me that have told me that my book helped them. And if I even just lean into, if I don't do anything ever again, you know what? I helped that kid feel better. And maybe with this story that I'm working on now, I can do it again. And that keeps me going.
The right story at the right time can change lives.
Yes.
I was in Montreal week before this. I did 17 presentations at schools, And when I was driving through the streets of Montreal, I passed by the area where Mordecai Richler lived. And I remember the book that changed my life was The Apprenticeship of Dudley Kravitz. And you're changing lives without even knowing you're changing lives. It's this miraculous process. It's a wonderful process. One of those presentations I presented to grades 7s, 8s, and 9s. At the end of the presentation, I had to leave the school. I walked into the cafeteria at lunchtime. I got a standing ovation in the cafeteria from a bunch of kids as I walked out. If that doesn't provide the fuel to say, this means something. At the end of a good presentation, you're not tired, you're exhilarated. It's a beautiful process.
So I was just about to turn the spotlight to you and ask you what you think is the secret to staying on the journey of your art, Eric.
It's rewarding. It's incredibly rewarding. I love writing. People say, do you like writing? I say, no, I don't like writing. I love writing. I'll also say to kids, if you can find something that you love that pays you money and isn't illegal, keep doing it. This is a great process. I love writing.
Well, thank you so much, Lana and Eric, for sharing about your beautiful book. The links to One Can will be in the description box if you're watching us on YouTube, or in the show notes if you're listening to us today. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
And thank you for a very nice, kind interview. It's really been a pleasure. This has been a nice conversation. I just wish we were all sitting around the same kitchen table.
Yeah. I wish we had more time, but alas.
Thank you so much. This has been great.
Thank you. On the next episode, I'll be chatting with another inspiring artist. But before then, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me what you think about this show and this episode. Feel free to drop me a note here or send me a DM on Instagram at Journey of the Art Pod. Finally, please subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, or follow and rate the show if you're listening elsewhere. Help me connect with other artists who need a dose of inspiration today. Until next time, stay on the journey of your art.